Slavery is as old as human civilization itself, older than written history. Nearly every culture on every continent practiced some form of human bondage: slavery, serfdom, indentured servitude, or collective peasantry. Yet when most people hear the word slavery, they immediately think of the African slave trade to the Western Hemisphere during the colonial era, from roughly 1500 to the mid-1800s. Between 10 and 13 million Africans were forcibly transported across the Atlantic. Around 10 million survived the brutal Middle Passage and were sold in North America, South America, and the Caribbean. Of those, approximately 450,000 went to British, French, and Spanish colonies that would later become the United States and the Caribbean. Brazil alone received nearly 5 million. What is far less discussed is this: slavery never truly ended, and another massive slave trade existed at the very same time. This was the white slave trade, centered in North Africa, carried out by the infamous Barbary pirates. And long before the American Civil War, the United States fought its first overseas war, not for territory, not for wealth, but to stop this very trade. What was the white slave trade? Who were the Barbary pirates? Why did American sailors and even women end up enslaved in North Africa? And how did 9 U.S. Marines, alongside mercenaries, make history and give birth to one of the most legendary traditions in military history? I'm Colin Heaton, former U.S. Marine Corps scout sniper, historian, professor, and author, and this is History Did That, a world at war. In the late 18th and early 19th centuries, the world was already in flames. Europe was consumed by the Napoleonic Wars, following earlier global conflicts like the 7 Years' War, known in America as the French and Indian War. These wars were fought across continents and oceans, in colonies, ports, and trade routes worldwide. Despite all this chaos, one industry thrived: human slavery. As European powers fought each other, the newly formed United States was trying to survive and define itself. In 1801, Thomas Jefferson became the 3rd U.S. president. During his presidency, America faced enormous challenges. The Louisiana Purchase doubled the nation's size. The Lewis and Clark expedition opened the western frontier. Slavery dominated domestic politics. Tensions with Great Britain escalated as the Royal Navy seized American ships and oppressed sailors. But one crisis is largely faded from public memory. Jefferson became the first U.S. president to send American military forces overseas into combat. The enemy, the Barbary pirates. The Barbary pirates and the white slave trade. For centuries, pirate states along the Barbary coast, modern-day Morocco, Algiers, Tunisia, and Tripoli, terrorized the Mediterranean. They captured merchant ships, stole cargo, and enslaved crews. Wealthy captives were ransomed. Others were sold in open slave markets. Their targets included Europeans and Americans, men, women, and even children. Under Islamic law at the time, Muslims could not enslave fellow Muslims, but non-Muslims could be legally enslaved. Over more than 300 years, historians estimate that over 1 million white Europeans were enslaved through sea raids and coastal attacks. The pirates even raided Iceland, traveling inland to kidnap women and transport them back to North Africa. Before American independence, U.S. merchant ships were protected by British naval power. That protection vanished in 1783. Now, American sailors were fair game, paying tribute or fighting back. In 1794, Congress authorized the payment to tribute to the Barbary states, essentially protection money. That same law also created something far more important: the United States Navy, beginning with 6 frigates. At first, tribute seemed cheaper than war, but Jefferson hated the idea. He called it modern-day Dane Guild, paying raiders to leave you alone, and history had already proven it never works. In 1801, the ruler of Tripoli, Pasha Yusuf Karamanli, demanded more money. When the Americans refused, he declared war in a dramatic fashion. by chopping down the flagpole at the U.S. consulate in Tripoli. It was a direct act of war. Jefferson responded by sending warships to the Mediterranean. The First Barbary War had begun. Escalation and disaster. The U.S. Navy blockaded Tripoli, disrupting pirate operations and the slave trade, but not stopping it entirely. Then came disaster. In October 1803, the frigate USS Philadelphia ran aground and was captured. 307 American sailors were taken hostage. The situation was desperate. In one of the most daring naval raids in history, Lieutenant Stephen Decatur led a nighttime assault into Tripoli harbor and burned the Philadelphia, denying it the pirates' use. Even so, the Pasha demanded massive ransom and threatened execution. Jefferson decided diplomacy was over. 9 Marines and a desert march. Jefferson approved a bold plan. Former U.S. Consul William Eaton and First Lieutenant Presley Obannon of the United States Marine Corps would lead a small force across the desert to overthrow the Pasha's rule in eastern Tripoli. Obannon had 8 Marines. They joined 500 mercenaries, Greeks, Arabs, Berbers, many of whom had personally suffered under the slave trade. The desert march was brutal. Hunger, thirst, mutiny, desertion. Obannon earned the trust of his men by sharing their hardships, respecting their faith, and leading from the front. The Battle of Derna. In April 1805, the force reached the coastal city of Derna. Supported by U.S. Navy ships offshore, Obannon and his Marines led the attack. Under heavy fire, they charged forward, seized enemy artillery, and turned it against the defenders. By 4 p.m., the city fell. For the first time in American history, the U.S. flag was raised on foreign soil. American hostages were freed. Pirate ships were destroyed. The myth of Barbary invincibility was shattered. The end of the white slave trade. In late June 1805, Yusuf Karamanli signed a peace treaty aboard the USS Constitution. American ships would pass freely, without tribute. European nations followed America's example. Tribute stopped. Naval patrols increased. The Barbary slave markets collapsed. The white slave trade in North Africa came to an end. Legend holds that Obannon was gifted a Mamluk sword, a symbol still carried by Marine officers today. Legacy. 9 Marines had done the impossible. They didn't just win a battle, they changed history. And they proved a lesson that would echo for centuries. The United States Marines will go anywhere, face anything, and succeed. Semper Fidelis. If you enjoyed this episode of History Did That, please like, subscribe, and stay informed. Send us your questions and ideas. We read every comment. Thank you for watching.